Hello, Star Trek fans, and welcome to the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we're watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 6, Episode 2, Rocks and Shoals. This episode aired October 6th, 1997. Before we talk about this one, anything to say about last week's episode?
No, it was perfect.
It was a good season opener.
I think it was.
Kicked everything off. And now we've moved on to Rocks and Shoals. And by the way, shoals. Who says that? What even is that?
I assume fishermen talk about shoals. Shoals of fish.
Not a common word in my lexicon.
Ah.
We're recording today while there's an air show going on in our neighborhood. So while we're trying really hard to avoid the extreme noise that comes from the air show, I think there's a good chance you might hear an airplane here or there during the recording.
Yeah, it's the Miramar Air Show, so we get a lot of planes flying over this time of year.
Yeah, but can't stop the podcast.
Nothing stops the podcast.
Not even Christmas. Well, today is your turn, and I get to be the peanut gallery, which, of course, among my favorite episodes.
You do seem to enjoy that.
Oh, I do. It takes the pressure off. I just get to enjoy it.
Okay, well, let's get started then.
Yep.
We start back on board the damaged Dominion attack ship, and Miles is very grumpy and using the word damn a lot.
But at least the ship's not on fire anymore.
Yes, he's having a lot of difficulty getting anything working. All the while, 2 Jem'Hadar attack ships are closing in on their position.
Yeah.
Sisko finds a dark matter nebula nearby, and as the Jem'Hadar ships start firing at them, he orders Dax to take them into the nebula.
No, scary.
Just as he does this, there's a huge explosion at Jadzia's station, and her stunt double is thrown backwards.
Yes.
We know it's a serious hit because we get 2 roof beams falling on her.
Yeah, that's what my notes say. Beams falling from the ceiling, so you know it's bad.
Sisko calls a medical emergency as an injured Jadzia lies on the floor. Miles reports that helm control is gone as the ship enters the nebula, and we see the pursuing Jem'Hadar ships peel off, and they don't follow them. There's a nice touch here while Miles is giving the ship status. Garak is in view in the background wearing the headset, like tapping the side of it, like trying to get it to work.
Hello.
Everything on the ship is like just broken now.
Right.
Meanwhile, Bashir is tending to Dax and tells Sisko it looks like the symbiont may have been injured. Were this a Trill Doctor, I'm pretty sure they would have been pulling the symbiont out by this point and saying, it's too late for whatever her name was, save the symbiont.
Yeah, for sure.
The chief is now reporting that yet more things are going offline. In fact, everything is offline.
Yeah, that's not good.
Sisko then asks Garak to take a look outside, and ominously, Garak replies, "Oh no, hold on." And we cut to an outside shot of the very heavily damaged ship crashing towards a planet. Fade into the opening credits.
Yeah, that was a very exciting cold open.
Oh, yeah.
I liked in this scene when everybody kept swearing, and then it finally leads to Nog swearing, and then Miles tells him to watch his mouth. That made me laugh. You are not allowed to swear, cadet.
Yes, you haven't earned it yet. So, after the action-packed opening, we open on a Jem'Hadar warrior standing by a rocky coastline. A second Jem'Hadar approaches him, telling him that they have established a defense perimeter and that the Vorta's condition has worsened and he will die soon. He also says that the first and second are also dead, and you are now the first. The first Jem'Hadar we saw says he questioned the Vorta's orders. As long as he lives, he will remain the third. So this guy, I guess, is the third in command.
I guess.
Saying that, I guess the structure is like the first is the captain, the second is a sergeant, and the third is like a corporal. So now the corporal's in charge.
And we also learned later that even though the first listens to the Vorta, that only whoever is in charge of the squad can discipline the squad.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
We also discover here that the Vorta ordered them into the nebula, and that's what caused them to crash on this planet.
Yeah.
The third says, it was not his place to question the Vorta. Remember, obedience brings victory. And the other Jem'Hadar parrots, and victory brings life. I would say obedience, what it really brings is crashing onto a desolate planet.
Yeah. Here when they showed the guest stars on this episode and it said Phil Morris on the screen, and I immediately went, oh, Young and the Restless. Additionally, he was in another episode of Deep Space Nine last season. He played a Klingon in Looking for Parmak in All the Wrong Places. So he gets around, this guy.
Yep,
in fact, when I looked him up on IMDb, he had over 200 credits.
Wow.
Yeah, he's quite prolific.
Before we leave this scene, the third says, if they are not rescued, then they will hold this world for the Dominion until they die.
It's a cool little scene the way it goes, but I'm not sure it's necessary.
I think the point of this scene is to show that these Jem'Hadar are the very loyal type. They're not the ones where discipline has broken down.
Yeah.
These are true believers.
Yeah. It's like, okay, dudes, chill out a bit.
We now cut to Nog swimming, very badly, I will note.
Yeah.
He reaches the shore and collapses exhausted. Garrick helps him up, delivering a trademark quip of, Cadet, this is no time to lie down on the job. So, Cardassians are better swimmers?
Must have been.
Garrick looks a little damp, but he doesn't even seem to be bothered by all of this.
I guess lizards are better in water.
Oh.
Those giant ears of the Ferengi, they're probably not good in water.
Yeah, they're not good flotation devices.
No.
Well, the rest of the crew, including Sisko and a redshirt, are pulling a raft full of crates onto the shoreline. One of the redshirts, if you notice, even has red hair, so I was putting her down as dead before the next ad break.
Yeah, I did think she wasn't going to make it.
We also see there's another guy in the background climbing out of the water. How come we never saw either of these two on the ship until this moment?
Maybe they were down in engineering. Only so many people fit on the bridge.
I wonder if there were other crew they lost on the ship then.
Yeah, I wondered that too. I'm going to say no, because they never mentioned it.
So this is just the crew. Okay. Well, Bashir tells Sisko that Jadzia is stable, and we get a wide shot showing they're in a small bay with the burning ship in the background, a little further out to sea, slowly sinking.
Yeah, I really loved that effect of the sinking Jem'Hadar ship. I thought it was quite effective.
And you also see that it's actually on fire while it's sinking.
Yeah.
Do you think that water was deep enough for it to completely submerge there? I would think it would sink a little bit and continue to stick up.
Well, impossible to know how deep it is.
This episode lacked a geological survey of the planet they crashed on.
And it couldn't have been that far out because they managed to swim safely to the shore.
Yeah. Well, they've managed to throw in a little humor because Miles on the raft gets annoyed that he's torn his pants. And they all have a good laugh about this because with everything happening, it's kind of funny that Miles is more concerned about tearing his pants.
Yeah, I guess he was really mad about it. That was funny.
Further thinking about this, it's pretty lucky that without maneuvering thrusters and, to quote Miles, everything offline, they actually managed to re-enter the atmosphere, make a water landing, and land near a coastline.
And that with no seats or no seatbelts, they didn't get thrown around and killed when they hit the water. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and we know that happens to Jem'Hadar because of the ship.
Right.
I guess as Miles was on board, and he is the greatest Starfleet engineer of all time, he at least managed to get something working before they crashed. So
maybe.
We can headcanon out of that one. Next, we're on Terok Nor, and it's the start of Kira's day at 0500 hours. And it's good to see that the Bajorans look like they're using 26-hour clock.
Why? Because it said it was 5?
Because the computer said 0500 hours.
But 5 is 5 a.m.
Then it would have said AM or PM. This could just be Kira's personal timekeeping choice.
That's some extra headcanon there. I'll allow it. She had an incredible amount of eye makeup on to be in bed. She also had her earring in, which I don't think you're sleeping in.
Oh, God, you're going to roll on that and it's going to dig in. That's going to be painful. That's not happening.
Yeah.
This whole scene here seems to really just be showing the routine of normalcy that's settled onto the station, including Kira getting into the elevator with a load of Jem'Hadar and Cardassians. And when she's at her station in Ops, a Cardassian called Mavic brings her coffee. I think it's sort of showing the banality of routine oppression.
I think that's one way to look at it, yes. Yeah. I also think we were seeing a little bit of her trying to put on a happy face, because when she first gets up and she looks at herself in the mirror, she does a sort of quirky smile.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, here's another day on the station, another day with the Jem'Hadar and the Cardassians.
Yeah.
And then that same thing kind of happens when she gets into the elevator.
Yeah.
This is such a non-normal thing that I am now supposed to accept as part of my normal day, or this is just my normal day now.
Right.
That's kind of the way I was reading it.
Yeah, this has sort of become normal.
But it was nice that Mavic kept bringing her coffee.
Well, not all Cardassians are terrible.
Yeah, he must be a good one.
Back to the planet, and in the cavern of the Jem'Hadar, we meet the injured Vorta. And we now see yet another different model of the Vorta. This is now the 4th different type of Vorta we've seen.
It might be the 5th.
Really? I didn't keep track. We will have to investigate that further.
Okay.
Their communications equipment is damaged, and the Jem'Hadar 3rd tells him it will be at least 10 days before they can attempt to make a low-power comms test.
Yep.
The Vorta does not seem very thrilled about the idea of 10 days.
And this Vorta has a pretty unique look as well.
Yeah.
And of course, they've got those piercing blue eyes, which I'm sure are not real, but he was really playing up this role.
Oh, yes. The third then tells him it is time for the white, and the Vorta opens the case. And the expression on his face kind of tells you it all here.
Yep.
Something is very wrong. And he hands just one vial of the white to the third and tells him that they must ration the supply if it is to last 10 days. He then tells them to not worry. He is the Vorta, and he will take care of them. He then slumps back down on the rock he's lying on, and it's pretty obvious this guy is severely injured and is not going to last 10 days.
What do you think they do with just one vial? Do they pass it around, or does just the first, who's now the third, is he the only one who gets it?
I think they would pass it around, because they become unstable if they don't get some of it.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
The other thing here is this Vorta seems to be displaying a similar attitude towards the Jem'Hadar as Weyoun into the death. He doesn't seem openly contemptuous of them, but he doesn't seem to hold third in high regard.
Yeah, I agree. This Vorta is more like the first version of Weyoun that we see.
Yeah.
In that he seems to think that the Jem'Hadar are disposable, not smart.
Yeah.
And he might be right, I guess, as far as we can see.
Yeah.
They're not frequently able to have strategic thoughts.
In a different cave somewhere on the planet, the Starfleet crew are drying their clothes. Jadzia is also lying on a rock, and Bashir tells Sisko that he's repaired the damage, and with rest, the symbiont should make a full recovery. Sisko then starts talking very softly to Dax, telling her that he'll get her out of there. That's a promise. And he's clearly very concerned about her well-being.
Yeah. But Bashir keeps saying everything's going to be fine. But Bashir has said that before, and it hasn't gone well.
Bashir definitely seems to have been working on his bedside manner.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He seems to be displaying a lot more concern for the patient and less sort of clinical harshness.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Outside the cave, Garak and Nog are exploring the planet. Garak notices that Nog is always staying behind Garak, keeping Garak in front of him. Nog tells Garak it's because you tied me up and threatened to kill me. I won't turn my back on you again. Garak seems to find this quite amusing and says, Cadet, there may be hope for you yet. I like this because it seemed like Nog was learning from experience.
Yeah, definitely.
I get the impression with Ferengi that they're very bad at learning not to make the same mistakes more than once. And I feel this is like a little thing of Nog is learning.
Yeah. And that's not necessarily the way we usually handle these things on Star Trek. When somebody gets like taken over by an alien or something, we're just supposed to forget that it ever happened and just move on.
So Garak's tricorder starts making the traditional Star Trek "something's not right" beeping sound.
Yep.
And Garak tells Nog he's not sure what it is, but before he can figure it out, 3 Jem'Hadar decloak and take them prisoner. Back in the cave of the Jem'Hadar, the Vorta is questioning Nog, who will only give his name, rank, and Starfleet number.
Yeah.
Garak starts spinning a story calling himself Kamar and how he's part of the Cardassian Intelligence Service, formerly the Obsidian Order, and he was taken prisoner by the Federation. The Vorta interrupts him and asks, then why were you wearing this? And holds up the Starfleet badge that Garak was wearing. Garak does his traditional, slightly surprised look and replies, I was hoping you weren't going to ask about that.
Well, he could have just said, I was undercover.
I do have an overanalysis point about this.
Okay.
The Vorta then asks Garak if there is a doctor in his unit. And to Nog's annoyance, Garak tells him yes. The Vorta now tells the third to find the Starfleet encampment and to assess their strength, but not to engage. He tells him, it's not important that you understand, only that you carry out my instructions precisely. The third replies, obedience brings victory. This guy's read all the propaganda leaflets.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you notice here when the Vorta says to take Garak and Nog to a holding cell, one of the Jem'Hadar actually just picks up Nog like a child?
Oh, I didn't.
That must be so annoying to be an actor, or well, I suppose not even just an actor, but to be a person of small stature like that and to have people just pick you up like you're a child when you're an adult.
Back on Terek Nor, Jake, in his journalist role, is meeting with Odo and Kira. He asks if it's true that 4,000 Dominion facilitators are being sent down to Bajor. Kira tells him it's only 400, and how, since the war started, Bajor has been cut off from outside trade, no spare parts, no medicine, or any other supplies. That sounds like a blockade. Are the Cardassians or the Dominion blocking Bajor, even for supplies outside the Federation?
Well, or is trade just disrupted by a war?
Oh, true.
That's the way that I heard it.
Okay. So people are too worried or concerned to actually trade with Bajor or go to Bajor because of the risk of being blown up or caught in a conflict. Right. Okay.
If they don't have a non-aggression pact with the Dominion, they don't want to go anywhere near it.
That's true.
Yeah.
So she tells him that this group of facilitators is just going to Bajor for a few months to provide technical assistance. Jake next asks her, what about Vedic Yasim, who says that inviting a group of Vorta to Bajor is the first step towards Dominion occupation. Odo then gives an excuse about the facilitators will be unarmed, they won't have any Jem'Hadar. Jake keeps digging at them and asks Odo, by joining the ruling council on the station, isn't he validating the occupation? Odo gives yet another excuse of, they don't need his validation, they're here and they're not leaving.
I thought Jake was annoying in this scene.
He was just asking the questions that needed to be asked.
He was paying no attention to nuance or to the people that he was talking to. Maybe he doesn't know a lot about Odo, but he certainly knows that Kira is a person of honor. He was expressing that almost idealistic view of something again that he was expressing in the previous episode, where it's like, look around you.
Oh, I agree, yeah.
And they also were making fun of him that he doesn't have any readers, because he said, oh, my readers want to know. And Odo's like, you don't have any readers because Wayun continues to block your transmissions. It's still like he's missing reality.
Yeah. I think your point, he's idealistic.
It's a little smug.
Finally, Jake asks if they'll be attending the demonstration tomorrow. Vedic Yasim is organizing a demonstration on the promenade, and Kira tells him she'll have to talk to the Vedic. Jake asks, are you going to abolish the right to protest on the station? Kira and Odo have had enough at this and call the interview over.
Well, this is where I got annoyed with him, because it's like, that's not what she said. How did you think she was going to react? It wasn't cool. Keep your cool, Jake.
He's just being a hard-hitting journalist.
Oh,
Do you think Kira is parroting an official Bajoran government line here, regardless of her personal opinions? She's been told, this is what's happening, this is the take you have to have on it. Have the Bajorans forgotten the last 50 years?
I don't know. We don't have detail, but it's certainly different. There aren't labor camps.
Yeah.
They're not just randomly killing Bajorans. That stuff isn't going on. But I could see that if you had been through it before, you're just like, well, here we go again.
In the Starfleet cave, the Red Shirt reports Nog and Garrick haven't returned and aren't responding to hails.
Did you have a little flashback to the previous season of Picard where they couldn't get the comm badges to work because there were no satellites or communication relays, yet somehow comm badges are working here?
Well, I think we know the writing in Picard varies between, have you ever watched Star Trek? And this is great.
Yes, especially in that second season, that was true.
Yeah. We then cut to Sisko and crew out patrolling, and the red-headed redshirt detects the Jem'Hadar and the cliffs above them. One of the Jem'Hadar appears to be suffering from withdrawal from the white.
Little edgy.
And starts shooting. There's a brief firefight where nobody can hit anything, and we go into the ad break. The firefight continues, and the third calls to stop firing. He orders one of the Jem'Hadar to shroud and return to the camp. So we get a name for the cloaking ability.
That's a good name for it.
Yeah. And it appears that the white is needed to make this work.
Or at the very least, they need to be at the top of their energy peak in order to be able to do that. Yeah, I was wondering, why is it that he can't shroud?
Yeah.
Is it for the same reason he couldn't stop himself from shooting because he's just edgy?
From withdrawal.
Was it that, or was it because of something more physical?
Yeah.
That was interesting. None of them could, apparently, at this point.
So it's something like they need to be calm to be able to do it.
Right. Or not injured.
In the cave of the Jem'Hadar, the Vorta gets into an argument with the third over troop discipline, and we see more of that dysfunctional power dynamic between the Vorta and the Jem'Hadar. The Vorta now tells the third he has another task for him, but we don't find out what yet. Back on Terek Nor, Kira is meeting with a Vedic, and I assume this is Vedic Yasim, but she doesn't actually say her name.
Joey's grandma from Friends.
She tells Kira the Dominion is evil, and the prophets tell us evil must be resisted. Kira tries telling her that the protests and demonstrations will just cause trouble, and right now there's nothing the Vedics can do to oppose the Dominion. She goes on to say, fighting isn't an option, and that this is different from the Cardassian occupation. The Vedic asks, is it? The Cardassians are in control of the station, Bajoran freedoms are being curtailed one by one, And soon, the first wave of alien troops will be landing on our world. She is making some pretty good points here.
I have to say there were times as I was watching this scene where I thought, well, she's not wrong. And then Kira would say something and I'd think, well, she's not wrong. I guess that's what makes it hard.
Kira tries putting a positive spin on things, saying, the Vorta will do their job and then be gone.
Right.
Then the Vedic drops the bombshell and tells Kira, can't you see what you're becoming? You're becoming an apologist for them, a defender of evil.
Yikes.
What will it take to make you act and stop accepting them and start fighting back? Kira tells her, you just don't understand. The Vedic replies, maybe tomorrow we will both understand. And she leaves. Wow. Was that not a great scene or what?
It was very good. You could almost see that conflict growing in Kira in that scene.
Yeah. You almost want to say to Kira, can you hear yourself?
Yeah.
This whole thing has just got a sting for Kira.
Yeah.
This must be even worse than Progress, where she realized that she was the face of the government now. Do you think she's just parroting the official Bajoran government, no longer provisional, line? Or is she making her own justifications?
I'm not sure if she's parroting what the government has told her to say. Certainly possible that that's what's going on.
Yeah.
You know how on this show, we're constantly torturing Miles in one particular way?
Yeah.
Well, we torture Kira in a different way. We make her question her faith, question whether or not she's doing the right thing. Is she doing the best thing for the Bajoran people?
Yeah.
In this particular situation, where I feel the conflict is coming in for her is that what she didn't have before, when it was Cardassia on its own invading her planet, was Starfleet in her ear.
Yeah.
Or the faith that she has now in Starfleet and in Sisko. That didn't exist before. And now she's doing what she thinks Sisko wants her to do.
Yes.
Which is to survive, maintain the lives of the people on the station, keep everything calm, don't get Bajor into a firefight because they will lose.
Yeah.
So she's trying to follow that. But now, of course, that thing is conflicting with the heart of Kira. So we were bound to get here. I wasn't sure how long it was going to take. That's why I'm not sure. Is she parroting what the government is telling her? Maybe that is the line. But I bet they're all feeling a little bit that way because the emissary said this.
Right.
And we didn't have the emissary before. He told us to do that. We need to. But that's somehow in conflict with what I think they believe their faith to be. So it's a mess. That's why I kept thinking, well, you have a point. Well, you have a point. Uh-oh.
Yeah, Kira is stuck in the middle of what is effectively an impossible situation for her, following the instructions of the emissary, while seeing largely everything she spent her young life fighting for being repeated.
Yeah. She could easily have told this woman, though, look, we signed a non-aggression pact with the Dominion. I'm A, trying to live up to that non-aggression pact, but also B, I'm trying to give the emissary an opportunity to come back and tell us what to do or to bring news from what's going on out in the war.
Yeah.
She didn't do any of that. Instead, she's tired and she was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I got to deal with this. And when you deal with people that way, this is what happens.
Yeah.
They look at you like, I don't know what's wrong with you.
So do you think she should have used the religious angle? This was an instruction from the emissary.
Yeah, I do. It's a Vedic.
I wonder if this is tying into what you said of maybe she is just exhausted.
Yeah.
She's having to put on this face, while at the same time she's having to be a representative of her government during effectively an occupation.
I wonder if what's happening a little bit is there's so much going on for her internally. She's even doubting herself at this point and whether or not her decisions are right. And she is maybe parroting what somebody else is saying. But there are certainly times in your life where, in anybody's life, where you get so wrapped up in what's going on in your own head and in your own heart that you don't see what's going on with the person right in front of you. And if she had had a moment of empathy, she maybe could have had a better discussion with this Vedic, but she didn't. Instead, she tried to brush her off. And that's a mistake for somebody who's already passionately believing something because they're going to overreact. To me, it's a lack of empathy because she's so wound up inside of her own head.
Okay.
I would buy that. There are times where we have talked on this podcast about how we don't believe that there's a lack of empathy in Kira. This I believe in this moment because I can see why she's tied up, not seeing things around her. But when Odo was having feelings before, I didn't buy that she couldn't see that just as a person. This to me is different because it's touching on so many different things.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Back to the planet, and in the cavern of Starfleet, Sisko is working on a forced deployment plan. Surprisingly, it does not seem to involve a straight power play.
Thankfully, we've only heard that once.
Dax volunteers to stay in the cave and guard their clothes.
Yep.
The red-headed redshirt, who we discover is called Neely,
not Neela,
calls Sisko and tells him a Jem'Hadar soldier wants to talk to Sisko alone. We learn here that the third's name is Remata'Klan and tells Sisko that they have 2 prisoners and they will trade them for Sisko and the Doctor.
Doesn't seem fair.
Sisko tries the approach of talking with Remata'Klan and tells him how he served with the Jem'Hadar in the episode To the Death, and that how the Jem'Hadar first killed their Vorta. The third tells him such things happen, but only in units that have lost discipline.
Right.
I think that's a Jem'Hadar burn there.
Burn.
The third tells Sisko that the Vorta just wants to meet with them, as he's been ordered to let them go free, unharmed, after the meeting. That one I would say is a little bit worrying because Sisko had just finished pointing out to Remata'Klan how the Vorta are manipulative, treacherous, and untrustworthy.
Yep.
So, after the meeting, why wouldn't the Vorta say to Remata'Klan, oh, by the way, I've changed my mind, just kill them?
Yeah.
Especially as Sisko's pretty much just learned from this guy. He is an absolute true believer.
Yep.
To quote the Vulcans, I question your logic.
Yeah, I agree. This was a little suspicious. I guess if you looked at it from maybe the point of view of Sisko as a captain,
Yeah.
he sees they don't have a lot of soldiers on that side. He doesn't have a lot of people on his side. Maybe there is a conversation that can happen. And he's got some experience with the Vorta, so maybe he thinks he's going to see Weyoun when he gets over there.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe he was just thinking this probably is an opportunity for us to just stay on our side and they stay on their side. Seems a bit naive, but maybe that's what he's thinking.
After the meeting, Sisko is talking to Dax, and she tells him that it sounded like he was getting through to the Jem'Hadar. Sisko tells her, you can't break through all of that Dominion conditioning in one conversation.
Right.
So I think it was a good approach for Sisko to try talking to this guy, to try and bring him round and convince him that, maybe they don't have to follow their orders or blindly follow what they've been told. But at the same time, this guy is telling you to your face he's a true believer. The other side is they're engineered for loyalty. I mean, I assume they're engineered for loyalty.
Well, that's what we've seen.
Yeah.
That's why they keep spouting obedience is life or whatever nonsense it is that they keep saying.
Obedience brings victory. Victory is life.
And this is what's bred into them, to be obedient and take orders.
Yeah. It's nice that he still tries.
This would be very unsettling dealing with the Jem'Hadar because they're just killers.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Next morning, they're doing the prisoner exchange, and we see Sisko and Bashir passing Nog and Garak on looks like a very long walk across open ground.
Where Nog does walk in front of Garak, I was surprised to see.
I noticed that.
Maybe Nog figured Sisko would keep his eye on Garak, so he'd be okay.
I don't know. Next thing you know, you're tied up again and Garak's got a gun on you.
Right.
Returning to Terek Nor, Odo and a Bajoran security officer are outside the Bajoran shrine. He tells Kira that there are 2 Vedics in the shrine, and Vedic Yasim has not shown up. Jake then arrives and tells Kira that the protest is starting at exactly 1400 hours. Suddenly there's a lot of shouting, and we see Vedic Yasim on the 2nd level, standing outside the security rail, with a rope around her neck.
Ugh.
She shouts, "Evil must be opposed," and the stunt double leaps off the ledge.
Yeah, it really did. It was really noticeable when it changed actors.
Yes.
It just seems like this keeps happening. This isn't the first person to end up hanging from the 2nd level of the promenade. It's terrible.
It's either that or Martog throwing Klingons off them.
Or Keiko jumping off.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That's dangerous.
They need better security barriers.
Totally.
They need catch nets.
I feel like you could put something up like that, little force fields or something. When somebody got close to the edge, a force field would close around the inside of it and protect someone who would jump and they just get caught in the little shield.
Oh, that's a good one. Add that to your skill set, Kim.
Yep. Space station design.
Yeah. Is that an achievement unlocked?
Yeah, I think so.
A shocked Jake, Odo, and Kira watch, and we see in slow motion the rope tighten and the Vedic's feet drop in front of the crowd. I have to say, even though they don't show the body, this was pretty graphic.
It was graphic, yeah. It was quite upsetting. This felt super grim. I also really struggle to see how one person doing this has any kind of an impact on the evil on the station. But I suppose if you look at it like Kira was impacted enough to make a change, so maybe it helped.
I will jump into overanalysis. The Bajorans are a deeply religious people, and the Vedics hold a lot of weight within society. I think a Vedic making a protest and killing themselves publicly in this way would have a big ripple effect.
I guess.
It would have an impact on Bajorans, and they would maybe re-examine their position.
Okay. Just seems so extreme.
That was Yasim's point.
Yeah. Hard to relate to.
She was an older person, so potentially had lived through the occupation.
Yes, so clearly.
Maybe this was her way of really bringing attention to, what the hell are you doing? We're repeating history. I lived through it.
Yeah, okay.
On the planet, in the caves of the Jem'Hadar, Bashir is now treating the injured Vorta, who we learn is called Keevan. We go back to Terek, and we repeat the opening with Kira getting up at 500 hours and basically repeating the same day.
But unable to do the fake smile in the mirror.
And when she arrives at her console in Ops, she looks around at the Jem'Hadar and the Cardassians and just leaves.
You know, I've had that moment at work before where I've looked around and I'm like, I'm not sure how I got into this situation working with these people. This might not be the best place for me. I could totally relate to that moment.
I think both of us can.
Yeah.
So back to the Jem'Hadar cavern, the Vorta awakes and seems to be very happy that he is alive. Keevan then orders the Third and his men to leave, and after they're gone, shows Sisko and Bashir that all the Ketracel White was broken, leaving only 1 vial and 10 Jem'Hadar. He says, when it's gone, they will kill everyone.
And then turn on each other.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
I think we gathered this from the look on his face when he first opened the case earlier.
For sure.
He tells them he's going to order the Jem'Hadar to attack Sisko's position in the morning, but he's going to give Sisko the precise plan of attack. So, it sounds like the Vorta actually do the tactical planning for the Jem'Hadar.
Well, I wonder if that falls into the missing of the first again.
Oh, the Third maybe didn't have the experience or hadn't been engineered to be able to do tactical plans.
Or maybe they don't normally do it, but every now and then they do tell them, no, you must do X.
Yeah.
They weren't super clear about that.
Yeah. He then tells Sisko that once he's taken care of the Jem'Hadar, he'll give him the comm system and surrender. He's pretty sure a Starfleet engineer can fix it, unlike a Jem'Hadar suffering from withdrawal.
The Vorta here does say that if Sisko doesn't do something about it and he just lets them attack, that the Jem'Hadar will kill all your men. This is a good opportunity for Sisko to say, oh, well then Dax and Lieutenant Neely will just kill you. They're only going to kill the men. I'll send in the women.
So they're just gendered killers. Okay.
Yeah. This is where you would normally say, that's just the universal translator.
Maybe. Bashir looks horrified at this and says, so you'll spend the rest of the war comfortably as a Starfleet prisoner of war while your men lie rotting on this planet. Keevan replies, I see we understand each other.
Very Wayoon.
Oh, yes. He finally says, I'm going to order them to attack regardless if you agree or not. Either way, they are coming.
Yep. I don't know why we're endlessly surprised by stuff like this. This is completely on brand.
Maybe this is one of the flaws with the founders' engineering of the Vorta. You will end up with some Vorta who puts their personal safety above the good of the Jem'Hadar, above the Dominion. And Keevan is one of these.
Well, I think we've heard that, of the order of things, and that the Jem'Hadar do fall after the Vorta in just who's important. So I don't think they should be surprised. And the fact that they treat the Jem'Hadar like what they are, which are just killing machines that don't have feelings and aspirations. They don't even have lives. They only live for a handful of years. It would make sense that they would just treat them like they're nothing. They're disposable.
No, what I mean is that what we're seeing here is a Vorta who seems to be putting his life above the things that are above him.
Above the cause. Well, I'm sure he could spin it, being the used car salesman Vorta that he is, that he'll be able to gather some intelligence this way, in the service of the Dominion and the Founders.
That's even worse for the Dominion, because that will mean all your Vorta potentially could turn on you and could self-justify that, oh yeah, I was doing this because it's in the best interest of the Dominion. Really? Is it?
I do feel like there's still a piece that we're missing about why the Vorta don't turn on them. Maybe this is the opportunity to see it. Here's a good example of it. And they will just find a way to survive. I'm not sure the founders would think it was bad.
Really?
No, because they don't care about the Jem'Hadar either. It's like, well, we'll just make more and whatever with that Vorta, and maybe he will gather intelligence when he's a POW.
Interesting. So even if it appears on the surface like he's betraying the founders, if he got intelligence and was rescued, he would spill his guts back to them and they would learn things. Okay, interesting.
Maybe.
Now in the Federation caves, Sisko is outlining the plan of attack. One of the red shirts says, they won't have a chance. Garak replies, now that is the point. In case you've forgotten, we're in a war. Miles says, there are rules, Garak, even in a war. Garak then says, correction, humans have rules in war. Rules that tend to make victory a little harder to achieve, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is one of the things that makes no sense. When the other side would sacrifice anything to kill you, you can't hold the moral high ground all the time, just until you're killed.
Not just kill you. Genocide you. There's the difference right there. Garak wants to win and is prepared to do whatever it takes. I'd also expect that Garak might be a little extreme, even for Cardassians.
This is why I can't ever go to war, because I would have this same debate about how I don't want to lower myself to be as terrible as someone else, but I also don't want to die, so it would be impossible for me to know what the right thing to do would be, so I don't want to ever have to make these choices. It's like if the Vorta can look at the Jem'Hadar as disposable, we have to find a way to do the same thing, because if they're not really capable of having empathy and being part of a society, then they're not really, I want to say human, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, are they really a sentient life form?
Are they really a sentient life form? Exactly. Or are they just sort of your robot soldiers?
Yeah.
This is such a tough one, but I think you have to, in this situation, you have to wipe them out.
I also think maybe Garak is being a little unfair here because he says about humans.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it really be more like the Federation has rules? Because the Andorians are part of the Federation. And I think that we've covered before in other Star Trek by this point that the Andorians were an extremely violent and warlike race too, but curbed their tendencies in the same way humans did. So it's not just humans applying these rules.
Yes. However, if you look at his current situation and you look at everything that Garak knows about Starfleet and about the Federation, are the humans in front of him.
True. The crew is discussing what they should do, and Redhead Redshirt says the Jem'Hadar wouldn't hesitate if their positions were reversed. They argue a bit, and Sisko gets annoyed, telling them, this isn't a vote. The decision is mine, and Mr. Garak is right. We are at war. He then orders them all to move out. I think we see Sisko doesn't have the luxury of debating this.
Yeah.
All those lives are his responsibility as the commanding officer.
Yeah, I certainly don't blame him for this opinion. I have a little bit about this scene in Leadership Corner at the end.
Okay. Before he leaves, Dax tells Sisko, I'd say good luck, but I don't think you're going to need it. Sisko replies, say it anyway, old man. I'm still hoping there's another way out of this. I like this about Sisko. They're setting off for battle. They're in the perfect position. They have a huge advantage over the enemy. And even then, Sisko is hoping for a peaceful solution. It's very Star Trek.
Yep.
Back to Terek Nor, and Kira is standing on the second level of the promenade, looking down. Is this the spot that the Vedic jumped from?
Yeah, I think so.
Odo comes up to her, and she tells him she can't believe she was willing to use force to stop a protest against the Dominion, and how, when she was in the Resistance, she despised people like herself. And then she says, I'm a collaborator, Odo.
Yeah, it took her this entire episode, I guess, to get there.
Well, technically, she's independent of the Dominion, and she's just carrying out orders of the legally elected Bajoran government.
Yeah.
A collaborator's a little bit strong.
Yeah, it's not the same.
I guess this is what she's feeling, though.
Well, and that's what that Vedic convinced her of.
Yeah, she's putting herself in the position of the people she had to deal with during the occupation.
Right.
Odo reminds her she's doing what Captain Sisko wanted her and Bajor to do.
Yeah.
Stay neutral, stay out of the fighting. She replies that half the Alpha Quadrant is out there fighting for her freedom, but not me. I feel bad for Kira because this is obviously extreme guilt for her.
Yeah.
Because she feels inaction about what she can do, probably even helpless.
Yeah, it's hard to watch. And it's also hard when you're watching because you start to get worried about what she's going to do. And you're like, oh, don't do something dumb.
She even blames herself for getting Odo more involved.
Right.
You can just so imagine she'd be driving herself nuts, second-guessing herself.
Well, she pushed Odo into this. And also in the previous episode, remember, she was saying, why doesn't this feel like a victory?
Yeah.
There's still something about it I don't like. And now I think she's put her finger on what it is that she doesn't like. It makes her feel like a collaborator.
Right. She finally says to Odo, Yasin was right. I have to start to fight back. Odo tries to talk her out of it, warning her that resistance would result in a backlash and a crackdown. Kira tells him, I don't want to have to fight you, Odo, but if I have to, I will. She's not pulling her punches.
But he very quickly is like, hey, I'm in. What are we doing?
I mean, this is a woman who will not back down. From everything we've seen, she absolutely means that. Odo does a great sigh here and says, all right, but let's find a more discreet place to plan the new resistance. Kira then smiles and walks away. A genuine smile this time, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that scene.
I really like the camera work here. They're doing these real close-up talking headshots with sometimes two of them in frame. It reminded me of Duet, of just sort of how close and intense it was.
Right.
I found it a really oddly intimate scene that just gave this real sense of atmosphere, of almost like claustrophobia.
I think this is the way that Kira and Odo have been interacting since it went from Deep Space Nine back to Terok Nor, because they've had to speak quietly and they've been each other's only allies. And so I think that intimacy is on purpose.
Yeah, a really well put together scene.
Yeah.
Back to California Rock Quarry World, and the Jem'Hadar are walking across open ground, and the camera pans to show Sisko's crew on the high ground hiding in firing positions. And we all know what it means when you have the high ground.
Well, this does seem like a terrible attack.
Yes.
Everybody goes in like a small group.
All bunched together. And if you notice, they all have their heads down, except for Redhead Redshirt, who's literally got her head sticking up above the ridge.
Well, maybe she thought her red hair was blending in with the red rocks. But yeah, she nearly gets shot.
I mean, I was wondering if her role here was that the Jem'Hadar would all shoot at the obvious target and draw fire away from the others.
Why didn't they set up some decoys?
Good question. When the Jem'Hadar draw closer, Sisko calls out to Remata'Klan, telling him he wants to talk. Sisko tells him there's no way out of the canyon, and they have phasers locked on every one of them. He tells him if he surrenders, he can save the Jem'Hadar. Remata'Klan replies, the Vorta did not give him the option of surrender, and he walks away. Sisko then tells him, Keevan betrayed you. He gave us your entire plan of attack. Remata'Klan says, it was an obvious, deliberate tactical error, and he suspected. He then says, despite what the Vorta think of the Jem'Hadar, they are often one step ahead of them. That was interesting. They're maybe not quite as mindless as the Vorta think.
Well, it's hard to know if that's the true story, if the Jem'Hadar really do think they're smarter than the Vorta.
Yeah.
It seemed like the Vorta was being kind of an idiot by just mocking them for not being very smart. No matter what, you're going to build resentment.
And I think that's the problem with the Vorta. They see themselves as the next level of superiority up from the Jem'Hadar. So treat them badly.
It's like they think they're the word of God.
Oh, right. Well, in the past, some of the Jem'Hadar said they'd never met the founders and that they'd only met the Vorta who'd brought them the orders. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sisko then tells Remata'Klan that Keevan does not deserve the unwavering loyalty you're giving him. Remata'Klan replies, he does not have to earn his loyalty. I am a Jem'Hadar. He is the Vorta. It is the order of things.
He says something here about how it's been that way since he was conceived. I question that conceived is the right word for how he was created.
Created in a test tube.
Yeah, I don't think you call that conceived.
Oh, this is an example of the universal translator.
Okay.
Sisko asks, do you want to give up your life just for the order of things? And Remata'Klan replies, it is not my life to give up. It never was. Here, I think, is Sisko's problem with understanding the Jem'Hadar. He's a true believer. He's locked into the cult.
Yeah.
He probably has no questions about the godlike status of the founders. Where do you go from here?
Yeah.
Sisko walks back behind the rocks and Miles asks, "What did he say?" Sisko tells him, "All the wrong things."
Yeah.
Remata'Klan, who's gone back to his men, tells them, "Our death is glory to the Founders." Is it really? The music swells and the Jem'Hadar begin a charge of the Light Brigade against Sisko's position. The shooting starts and it's all over quickly. All the Jem'Hadar go down. The smoke clears and we see all the bodies of the Jem'Hadar. On the Federation side, Bashir is attending to Red Shirt number 2, who didn't make it, and as far as I know, didn't get a name.
Yeah.
But shockingly, Neely, redhead Red Shirt number 1, actually survived.
Yeah. Well, she got a name. Got to keep her. The other guy he had no name. He was doomed.
And then, walking across the canyon, carrying the comms unit, comes Keevan. He stops, looking around at the Jem'Hadar bodies with almost a bemused look on his face. I thought that was another one of those little touches of like, oh, they're all dead.
Ha ha.
He shouts to Sisko, "You know, if I had just 2 more vials of white, you wouldn't have stood a chance." Sisko manages to suppress the natural urge to just shoot him, and then tells Miles to get to work on the comms unit and for Neely to form a burial detail. The end.
Why not just shoot him? He's not a good guy. Well, do you have overanalysis?
Yes, I do. First thing is just really a minor point. As the Cardassians are now back in charge of the station, I believe the show should be called for all these episodes Terak Nor.
Yeah, they should have changed the opening. That would have been good, yeah. They would do that today.
Second minor point, Keevan, when he was in the Cave of Jem'Hadar, did say at 10:11 in the timestamp that he would take care of them all. And strictly speaking, if you're a fan of like mobster movies and things...
Oh, he did.
The interpretation of take care of you all would pretty much line up with what he did.
True. Well, he didn't know either at the beginning, but he knew one way or the other he was getting out of there.
Okay, that leads me on to, after Bashir fixed him, if he has only 1 tube of the white left, 1 vial of the stuff, couldn't he quietly call in the 3rd, give him the vial and say, okay, kill the other 9 guys?
Yes.
You'd still have 1 Jem'Hadar you'd have to kill, but, you know, it could be an easier way to get rid of them.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But this way, you are sort of forcing your enemy to compromise their principles, and I guess it's a way to mock them.
I don't know. I think Keevan seemed more concerned about his own well-being, really, than anything else.
Yeah, his own survival was what mattered.
I guess maybe this is the other side as well, of Keevan is aware that the Jem'Hadar aren't always 100% loyal.
Well, this is the way for them all to get killed. If he had done something that would have gotten most of them killed, or had just left the 1 guy, I guess that was still a risk to him.
Yeah.
For that reason, that the loyalty maybe at that point could be questioned. And this guy, the 3rd, they did point out that he had already questioned Keevan at the beginning.
Yeah.
So he maybe had some doubts that he'd be able to rely on him even if he gave him the white.
That's true. He had done that. So do you think Remata'Klan, where he keeps on quoting the Founder's scripture, pledging his loyalty, was maybe overcompensating for questioning Keevan?
As always with the Jem'Hadar, it's very difficult to know. But yeah, he's overcompensating and showing, no, look, I really am a good Jem'Hadar.
Yeah. Up to death because it brings glory to the Founders.
Right. This is a pretty well-written story, I would say, because it's very difficult to see any other way out other than what the Vorta chose.
That's true.
So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So, first point, even though we're like 3 in.
Yeah, I was going to say, how is this the first? Okay.
The Jem'Hadar warriors, they're pinned down in the canyon by the Starfleet crew. So it may seem impossible, but looking at this from the Jem'Hadar's point of view, with their programming, they're facing a weak, inferior crew. How could they possibly lose?
Right.
Some soldiers may be lost, but they must have been weak ones, so getting rid of them, that's a good thing. So from our perspective, this looks kind of suicidal. But from the Dominion programming point of view, this is a completely acceptable battle situation. Your warriors are disposable. If they succeed, great. If a few of them die, well, that's what the gods wanted.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And they don't go in with fear anyway, because they don't have fear.
Victory is life.
So, yeah.
Next point, Starfleet losses and the tragic loss of yet another red shirt. I think the point here is it kind of mirrors the Jem'Hadar. Starfleet is supposed to be about peaceful coexistence, even at the potential loss of their own lives. Sisko commented on something like this before, to the effect of, you know the risks when you put on the uniform. And I think from a Starfleet or Federation perspective, you'd be prepared to risk your life to find that common ground, to take the moral high road and avoid the conflict. I want to believe that had Sisko held a vote of the crew and asked, should we give him a chance to surrender and avoid bloodshed? They would have taken the same approach as Sisko and said, yeah, always. We got to give them a chance to surrender. We've got to give them that chance to do the right thing. So the Federation Starfleet personnel would take the risk of their lives to get a peaceful outcome. And I think that was kind of demonstrated because this was the guy who said when they were all discussing it that it didn't feel right. Picard would take that approach in TNG.
Absolutely. And I wonder if they assumed that would happen, or did Sisko tell them that he was going to do that when he got out there? This was a little bit of my challenge with the leadership part of that earlier meeting.
We'll leave that to leadership then.
Okay.
Next one. Garak. I cannot believe Garak wouldn't have found a way to talk his way out of the situation with the Vorta. He's Garak. Lies are his stock trade. He has so many possible excuses. Number 1, they made me wear the badge to keep an eye on me and know where I was. Number 2, I agreed to help because I thought we were stranded and they were too trusting. I hoped there'd be a Cardassian outpost here. Number 3, I was wearing the badge because I killed the owner and took it from him.
Yeah, there were many options. He did say he was getting rusty at lying.
Oh.
So maybe he didn't come up with enough good excuses.
Oh.
But yeah, those all seemed like good stories.
So I was surprised he didn't try harder.
Yeah.
Do you think the Vorta are good at picking up when people lie? Because they're involved with the Cardassians, the Vortas have additional training or ability to pick up when Cardassians are lying?
I'm definitely sure they would tell you they can.
That's true.
But I don't know if they really can.
Yeah. And my final thing, obedience of the third. Is part of the poor decision-making. Is this because he's the third? Would the first or second be programmed to have more independence and be able to say, hey, wait a minute, the Vorta is a traitor to the founders. We're not going to follow his orders and just shoot him. Is there a hierarchy of intelligence within the Jem'Hadar? So 1 and 2, they turn up the dial when they're making them. And when they're making the thirds, they're like, okay, bog standard, just follow orders. You can lead a squad, but that's the limit of it.
Maybe they get some extra training. Maybe they get a few extra pieces of genetic material to make them smarter. Yeah, sure, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering with the Jem'Hadar. Are they all the same, or is there a genetic component to their command structure?
I assume they were all the same, and different training kicks in when they become the first.
Gotcha.
But good question.
Okay. And with that wraps it up for my overanalysis. Over to you.
I only have 2 things in my overanalysis, and the first one is, at least there was no Ducat in this episode. It's like the first thing I wrote down when the episode ended.
A Ducat-free episode.
Not so much an overanalysis point as just something I'm thankful for. And then my next item, I was wondering, why did the Vorta order them into the nebula? They said that at the beginning, that the third had argued with him about it. Now, was that before or after the first and the second were dead?
Oh, yeah.
They don't give us enough info. I want to know, did he actually make a bad strategic decision already, which would lead them to have more reasons to question him? Or was he just trying to escape some other attack and the other 2 had already been killed? I don't know. We don't get the info.
That's a good point. Why would the third, when he has 2 people above him, be questioning the Vorta?
Exactly. Yeah. So something there, I guess. The story wasn't complete.
Yeah.
But other than that, we talked about the things I had in my overanalysis. So let me then just jump to Leadership Corner for a minute. I don't have a lot, but I have the same complaint that I had in Children of Time, where Sisko was sitting in a room with his leadership team, and they're all talking about what they think they should do. And then at the end, he was like, this is not a debate. This is my decision. And even then, I didn't dispute that it was his decision, but I dispute the value as a leader of letting everybody give you their opinion and then for you to just say, well, I'm not considering it anyway. So what a colossal waste of your time it is for you to disagree.
Yeah.
And it was kind of similar here. It's like, maybe this is a little different because this is a more stressful situation and it's sort of life or death, right? And it's more urgent.
Oh, yeah.
But even then, at the end, he could say really simply, okay, I've heard everything you've said. This is the decision that I need to make, but I'm taking everything that you're saying into account, and here's what I think we should do. To me, that's the right way to handle it as a leader, rather than, oh my God, your opinions are just such a colossal waste of my time. So I had that same complaint here.
Yes.
All he really needed to do here was to tell them his plan, let him in on the plan. Like, okay, I hear you. This isn't something that we want to do. This isn't necessarily the right thing or the Starfleet thing to do. So this is what we're going to try.
Yeah.
When we get on the field, I'm going to try to negotiate with the third, and I'm going to offer him an opportunity to save himself and his men, and we're going to try to all get out of here together. And if it doesn't work, then let's be prepared to finish it. Again, just a really simple message. And maybe that did happen off screen and we just didn't see it. But to me, that's the leadership piece that was missing.
Okay, I see.
So that was my only thing in Leadership Corner. So I will jump to Women in the Future. And I don't have a lot really in Women in the Future because we already sort of talked about the few things that I had to say about Kira and how you could see her learning how she really felt about things in this episode.
Yeah.
And I think we test her so many times. And this was another example of how we're testing her, because now we're actually testing her loyalty to Sisko and to the emissary. So this was an interesting character study, even though the scenes with Kira were pretty short. And of course, the Now Visitor performs really well in it. And you just buy it. You buy what she's going through.
It feels very heartfelt.
It feels very heartfelt. Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
I think the way of describing it is you can feel the struggle.
You can feel the struggle. And that scene where she was sitting at ops and she looked around, surrounded by people she doesn't like, doesn't respect, doesn't want to be with, and she just got up and walked out. And I just related hard to that. I've just been in those situations where I've looked around at work. Look, not recently, for those of you who work with me, not at the place I work now, but at a previous employer where I just looked around and I thought, what am I doing with you people? You are all horrible. I don't need to be a part of this. And I just really liked that she got up and walked out. And I thought, wow, I wish I could have done that in that moment too, but good for her. Not a lot to say, I guess, about the women on the planet. Lieutenant Neely, she was just a part of the team. That's great. That's all I ever ask, is that the female characters are not treated in a different way from the men. So that was all good. So nothing else to say there. So let's go to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
Thumbs up. Absolutely great episode. Kira knocks it out of the park. The Vorta, who's living up to all the worst things that Sisko described about the Vorta. Thoroughly enjoyable episode.
Yeah, I agree. I thought this was a very good episode. I give it a thumbs up. Certainly some good performances in it. And even this new version of Weyoun, what was his name?
Keevan.
Keevan. Even Keevan, he was very good. So I give it a thumbs up. This is the kind of episode I hope we continue to do where it's not completely buried in the overarching story. It is still a pretty good standalone as long as you understand sort of what's happening around it. You can still watch this episode. I thought that was also good. Maybe Kira's story was a little more specific to the time within the story, but overall, thumbs up.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that wraps up Season 6, Episode 2. Come back next week for Episode 3. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own over-analysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at ReBingeIT@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at ReBingeIT. We're also on Instagram and YouTube at ReBingeIT. You can check us out on TalkThroughMedia.com, where you can listen to the other Star Trek podcasts in our network, and you can also leave feedback for individual episodes there. We're also part of a Patreon, patreon.com/Star Trek TTM. This Patreon supports all of the Star Trek podcasts in the Talk Through Media network.
Thanks for joining us on the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.